they're not going up to a woman? Like, what's holding them back from that?
Because of feminism and Me Too and all that shit. And because women will put men on blast who like maybe awkwardly approach them. You see also those gym TikTok videos where girls like work out in the gym and then there's like a guy who like glances at them for like 1 second and they fucking blast them. That's what guys are scared of. And these guys aren't even, they're not even doing anything wrong. They're just like innocently, sometimes they're not even looking in their direction. So there's like this social component now where like people are terrified to get like being exposed on social media. So
I think I owe the men of the world an apology. Let me explain before you come in my comments. I always think to myself, why don't men just approach women? Why? It's not that hard. Just say hi. Just say hi. Your hair is pretty. It's not that hard, right? Well, last night I learned it is hard, okay? And let me tell you what happened. So I'm just sitting at the bar with my buddies, just having a fun time, and in walks some men who were attractive. One in particular, I was like, wow, he's very handsome. So I'm chatting with my friends who are all male in this conversation. I'm like, what do I do? Because I don't really approach men ever, but I also don't ever get approached. So anyway, I'm thinking to myself, how bad could it be? So they suggest I send him a drink. And I'm like, brilliant. Oh my gosh, I've never done that before. That's so smart. So I send him his drink of choice, which was a Corona with lime. Whatever, should have known. Anyway, so some time goes by and he has not acknowledged that I've sent this drink. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just go over there. I walk up and I say, hey, how's your beer? You know, I like bat my eyelashes, you know, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, you sent this? Yeah, I did. It was me. And then he said nothing. 0 words exchanged. And you know that gif of Britney Spears where she's like holding her purse and she's just sitting there looking around like this? That was me in real life. And we just stared at each other. And I said, okay, enjoy your night. And then I had to turn around and march my way back to my little bar stool, just wrapped in rejection. And now I have to think about that for the rest of my life. So, gentlemen, I'm sorry.
An apology now means nothing. Let that sink in. Because what you're really witnessing here isn't just a breakup. It's emotional shutdown. It's the moment a man goes from explaining himself to simply not caring anymore. Before we dive in, drop a comment. Are modern men more delusional, or is it the ladies? Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what we expose next. Now, back to this. An apology now means nothing. That line hits hard because it exposes a brutal truth about timing. Apologies only work when there's still emotional access, when someone still feels something, when there's still a door slightly open. But when a man reaches the point where your words don't move him at all, that's not anger. That's not bitterness. That's indifference. And indifference is final. Notice what she said next. Imagine how heartless he has become, that he didn't even reject you with his words. His attitude was enough. That's not heartless. That's exhausted. There's a difference. When a man stops arguing, stops defending himself, stops trying to explain why something hurt him, that usually means he's been ignored for a long time. He's repeated himself. He's tried to communicate. He's probably been called insecure, controlling, dramatic, all the usual labels. And at some point, he realizes talking changes nothing. So he withdraws. No shouting, no dramatic speech, no closure conversation, just energy shift. And here's what modern dating doesn't prepare people for, especially in this era of soft life fantasies and endless options. Silence is louder than words. When a man doesn't even care enough to formally reject you, that means he's already processed the loss. He's already detached. You're apologizing to someone who emotionally left weeks, maybe months ago. But instead of asking, what did I ignore? What signals did I dismiss? The instinct is to label him heartless, cold, changed. No, he adapted. There's a growing pattern in 2026. Men quietly checking out, not because they hate women, not because they can't handle relationships, but because repeated disrespect, double standards, and emotional one-sidedness train them to detach default text. Instead of argue, You can't demand emotional vulnerability from someone while dismissing their boundaries at the same time. And when that contradiction stacks up long enough, you get this version of him. Calm, quiet, done, no speech necessary. His attitude was enough.
What are modern women more upset about? Men being stingy with their money, not wanting to pay for dates, paying her bills, or that men don't want to marry the woman that he sleeps with. Biblically, that's his wife, right? I don't think the women are upset that men don't want to get married like they used to. It's that they can't get men to want to give them their money. Because they could keep the marriage as long as they get the money.
But wait a minute. Weren't strong, independent women supposed to have their own money now? That was the whole narrative, right? I don't need a man. I make my own money. I pay my own bills. Independence, autonomy, freedom. So if that's true, why the outrage? Why the frustration when men start checking out of marriage and long-term commitment? See? This is where the contradiction starts to show. If you genuinely don't need men financially, emotionally, or structurally, then men stepping back shouldn't affect you. It shouldn't trigger anger. It shouldn't feel like a loss. But the reality is, a lot of the so-called independence was selective, independent, but still expecting provision, empowered, but still wanting traditional benefits, modern, but only when it advantages you. And now that more men are opting out of the old provider at all costs, model now that they're looking at divorce statistics, custody battles, financial risk, and asking, is this deal balanced? Suddenly there's panic. The scam some men are referring to isn't women working or earning. It's the expectation mismatch. It's being told you're not needed, but also you're still required to provide. It's being told masculinity is outdated, but being judged if you don't earn enough. It's being told women are equal partners, but expected to shoulder traditional burdens without traditional authority or appreciation. So when men say they're checking out, what they mean is this. They're refusing to play a role that only comes with responsibility and none of the respect. Now, does that apply to every woman? Of course not. But culturally, there's tension. Because independence was marketed as freedom from dependence, not freedom from consequences. And when the dating market shifts, when men start prioritizing peace over partnership, when they invest in careers, hobbies, friendships, instead of chasing approval, that changes the leverage dynamic. Some women are thriving in that environment. Others feel blindsided because the attention economy they relied on is thinning out. This isn't about hating women, and it's not about men being flawless. It's about incentives changing. If both sides claim independence, then both sides have to accept what happens when the other walks away. You can't celebrate not needing someone and then be furious when they believe you.
I encourage any man to try to be in a relationship with a woman to where he's not solidified on his own first. It was no reason why the young man that I was dealing with at the time should have moved out on his own with a woman where he did not have certain things in alignment and in order, right? You need to have your finances together as a man. You need to have your foundation set for yourself as a man. You need to be building upon your purpose as a man. Like, you need to focus on you first. This is why I'm a strong advocate for men putting themselves first, because when you put yourself first as a man, everything else is going to follow suit. Had that young man put himself first and say, you know what? Let me go ahead, let me establish this, and then I can, have a strong...
What boyfriend is he even your boyfriend? Feels like you're onto him forcefully. That line right there exposes a dynamic a lot of people don't want to admit, because sometimes it's not a relationship. It's a pursuit disguised as one. If you constantly have to chase him, pressure him, corner him into commitment, monitor his energy, demand reassurance, at some point you have to ask yourself, is he choosing you or are you managing him? There's a difference. When a man genuinely wants you, you don't need to campaign for the title. You don't need to force the label. You don't need to argue your way into exclusivity. And this goes both ways, by the way. No one should have to convince someone to claim them. But in this situation, it sounds like she's holding on to a technicality. He's my boyfriend. Okay, but does he act like it? Does he invest? Does he initiate? Does he protect the connection? Or does it feel like you're constantly trying to secure something that's slipping through your hands? Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you feel like you're forcing a relationship, you probably are. And forcing anything romantic creates resentment. On his side, it feels like pressure. On your side, it feels like anxiety. That's not partnership. That's tension management. This also ties into a bigger issue in modern dating, the fear of losing status. Sometimes people hold on to someone not because the relationship is healthy, but because being chosen validates them. Being someone's girlfriend or boyfriend becomes an identity badge. But a title without enthusiasm is just paperwork. If he moves like he's single, speaks like he's unsure, and acts like he's tolerating you, then the label doesn't change the reality. And here's where accountability comes in. Instead of asking, why won't he step up? Sometimes the better question is, why am I trying to force someone to step up for me? Because when someone is truly aligned with you, you don't have to drag them into position. They stand there willingly. If it feels forced, it's because it is. And deep down, both people usually know it.
Understand why a lot of guys want to quit. They say it's not worth it anymore. They say they'd rather just give up. Because sure, the current terms and conditions of modern dating are bizarre, to say the least. They suck. They definitely do. But if you ever want to make a change, you got to get really good at the game you're playing. You can't give up. You can't sit out. That's not the way it works. You got to rise to the top of the game, and once you're at the top, you can make changes. You can choose to sit it out, but I think you should try to compete at a high level. I think that's always the best way to go. But yeah, I understand why a lot of guys want to sit it out. It shouldn't have to be that way. When you're young and you're 18 years old and you just want to have a girl to love, get married, start a family with, live in your small apartment while you're both working, grinding it out, you and her, broke as a joke, madly in love, you get married, she gets pregnant, you bust your ass, you get a promotion, you buy a house, the American dream. That's what people want, but that's not the current landscape for most people. A good 90% of people aren't following that blueprint. So it's hard work, it's tough. It's not something that you can have a warm feeling about. It doesn't give you a wholesome, good feeling, the modern day.
A very wise way to put what's happening right now is this. The internet takes the relationship out of the home. That's it. That one sentence explains so much of the chaos we're watching unfold. Because relationships used to be private ecosystems. To people, their issues, their growth, their disagreements, their compromises, mostly handled behind closed doors. Now, every argument is content. Every disagreement is a poll. Every breakup is a public trial. The internet didn't just give people advice, it gave them an audience. And once there's an audience, performance starts creeping in. Instead of asking, how do we fix this? People ask, who's going to validate me? Instead of resolving conflict, they document it. Instead of building intimacy, they outsource perspective. And here's where it gets deeper. When the internet enters your relationship, it doesn't enter neutrally. It comes with algorithms. It feeds you content that reinforces your side. It shows men videos about modern women are entitled. It shows women videos about men are emotionally immature. Now both sides feel justified. Now both sides feel like victims. And suddenly your partner isn't just your partner. They represent an entire gender narrative you've been binge watching all week. That's dangerous. Because now you're not arguing with the person in front of you. You're arguing with every TikTok clip, every podcast rant, every viral street interview you've consumed. The internet also amplifies unrealistic standards. You see highlight reels of soft life relationships. You see curated masculinity. You see luxury dates, submissive girlfriends, dominant high-value men, perfectly feminine wives. Nobody posts the boring middle, the compromise, the awkward growth phase, the budget conversations, the emotional repair work. So real relationships start feeling underwhelming compared to digital fantasies. And when dissatisfaction creeps in, instead of introspection, there's comparison. The internet says, I deserve better. The internet says men like you are replaceable. The internet says women like you are delusional. So what happens? Trust erodes. Privacy dissolves. Respect weakens. The relationship leaves the home and enters the timeline. And once strangers are involved in your intimacy, the bond starts competing with opinions That's the quiet shift happening in 2026. It's not just that men are checking out or women are frustrated. It's that the relationship itself is no longer sacred space. It's public property. And when your love life becomes content, stability becomes secondary to validation.
Saying, I've just decided altogether to avoid women, that it's better to be single, guys. They're almost like happy about the fact that they're gonna make the choice to avoid the entire gender of women because they have yet to actually resolve
A war with modern women, not within ourselves. That statement sounds bold, but let's slow it down and unpack what's really being said. Because when people talk about a war, what they usually mean is cultural tension, not literal battle. And here's the interesting twist. It's the women who are at war with each other and can't settle with good men. Now that's a layered claim. What does at war with each other even mean in this context? It often shows up as competition disguised as empowerment. One side says, prioritize career, never lower your standards, secure the highest earning man possible. Another side says, be cooperative, choose peace over ego, build with a solid guy even if he's not flashy. And then there's social media amplifying both extremes. So instead of unity, you get conflicting advice loops. You've got podcasts pushing hyper-independence. You've got influencers pushing hypergamy. You've got others pushing traditional femininity. And all of it is packaged as the correct path. Now imagine being a woman trying to navigate dating in that noise. If you choose a stable, good man who earns average money but treats you well, some circles call you settling. If you chase the high-status, high-income man with options, other circles warn you he'll never commit. So what happens? Internal conflict. Not necessarily hatred of men, but confusion about what strategy actually works long-term. And here's the part people avoid saying out loud. Social comparison between women is real. Attention is visible now. Likes, followers, lifestyle displays, everything is measurable. So, naturally, standards escalate. If your peer group appears to be dating higher-earning men, traveling more, receiving grand gestures, it quietly resets your baseline. Suddenly, good man isn't defined by character alone. It includes status, lifestyle, social proof. Now, let's be fair. Men do this too, comparing beauty standards, body types, perceived femininity. But when someone says women are at war with each other, what they're often observing is competitive escalation in mate selection standards. And that creates a squeeze. Because the pool of men who check every modern box, high income, emotionally available, physically attractive, socially respected, is statistically small. So the frustration grows. Some women feel like the men they want won't commit. Some men feel like they're invisible unless they hit elite status. That's not a gender war. That's a market imbalance. Now here's the key nuance. Can't settle with good men implies that choosing stability is losing. But in long-term relationship economics, stability is often the actual advantage. The real question isn't, are women at war with each other? It's, has modern dating culture inflated expectations faster than reality can sustain them? Because when expectations rise and supply doesn't match, tension follows. And tension gets framed as a war, but underneath it, it's misalignment. Standards, strategy, and social pressure colliding at the same time.
Why women are single.
Why do you keep talking to money when you talk tradition?
Because I'm telling you that that's how I am as a woman. So if I'm with a man, like, I'd rather be at home with the children, taking care of the home.
Can you give me another
while
example?
you're outside.
Okay. Can you give me another example of tradition that is not based around finance?
That's tradition. The woman role and the man role. The man is the provider. The woman is the
but it's not always
the one that cares for the home.
But it's not always based around finance. There's some traditional things.
I'm taking care of the children. I'm taking care of the house. That has nothing to do with finance.
So you don't believe that in today's world that you can maintain doing both?
I think that's unfair to the woman.
You're already doing it.
Correct. But if I have a man in my life,
so that absolves you of everything.
And that is why women are single. Because it's like they rather do it by themselves, just like a man rather do it by himself.
The message that you're putting out there is that this is tradition. This is how it should go. And no, how it should go is me and you come together as two independent people.
Correct.
And we figure out how to make this house work.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who would say, hey, you know what? You want to be a Fortune 500.
That is still more tradition. Like, that is a more traditional. If you go back, that's how it was. Women didn't have rights. Women couldn't work. Women couldn't do
But
shit.
you got them
Just
today.
Stay home.
No, but
That's what I mean when I say tradition, guys. Like, I mean, like, I'm talking about old age. I would have been better off in the old days, guys. Like, for real. Like, I would have been better off in the old days because I would have been a great mom at home, cooking, cleaning, and that's it. I would have been good. Like, I would have been good, for
She
real.
threw me off.
That
Like,
gives-
I'm being honest. Like, I'm not for this time. Like,
Where's my camera again? Where's this one? This one. Fellas, like the fellas need to hear this. Fellas, I want you to know, and this is me. I'm your brother. I'm your brother. I want you to know. There are women out there that want to build with you, not build with tradition. I'm not speaking against her because what is good for her, what's good for you works for you. I want you to know that. I'm telling you, my brothers, who are now growing in this era where that is becoming a thing. And it sounds, what she's saying is, I don't think she's saying that she would not fall in love with the person, but the message could come across as that. I want you to know that there are women out there that will not put that standard on you and will actually take the time to get to know you and grow with you. And that has been my issue in trying to date. And having to decipher between the women who want that, who also want to take the time to get to know me.
We don't live in the 1900s anymore, or even the early 2000s. Exactly, the economic landscape has shifted dramatically. This isn't the era where a single factory job could comfortably support a household of 5. We're in a late-stage consumer economy where rent rises annually, wages lag behind inflation, and dual-income households are becoming the norm just to maintain middle-class stability. In most urban environments, one salary covering rent, utilities, food, transportation, healthcare, and savings, that's mathematically tight. So when someone says, this new generation of capitalism demands 2 incomes just to survive, they're not exaggerating. They're describing structural pressure. Now, here's where the friction begins. If the economic system requires partnership-level contribution, but the romantic expectation still leans toward one-sided provision, there's going to be tension. Not because providing is wrong, not because ambition is wrong, but because expectations haven't fully updated to match economic reality. The traditional model was simple. He provides financially. She manages the home, but modern life changed the equation. Women entered the workforce in large numbers. Education levels rose. Career aspirations expanded. That's not controversial. That's demographic data. The complication is this. Some people want modern independence and traditional benefits at the same time. I have my own money, but also he should handle everything. I'm equal, but also he should carry the full financial load. And here's the key. You can't apply 1950s financial expectations inside a 2026 cost of living framework. Without stress, it's not about attacking women. It's about economic coherence. If 2 adults are living together in a high-cost environment, both benefiting from the lifestyle, both consuming resources, then partnership contribution becomes logical. That contribution doesn't have to be strictly 50-50 of dollars. It can be proportional. It can be strategic. It can be negotiated. But the idea that one person should automatically absorb the entire financial burden while the other remains financially detached, in today's economy, that's a high-risk setup. And here's another uncomfortable layer. Men are also feeling pressure. They're expected to earn more than their partner. They're judged if they don't. They're compared to curated online lifestyles. So when someone calls it insane to expect a man to do everything now, what they're reacting to is misalignment between reality and expectation. The economy changed. Housing markets changed. Work culture changed. If relationship roles don't evolve alongside those shifts, resentment builds. The real solution isn't blame, it's clarity. What model are you actually operating under? Traditional, modern, hybrid? Because confusion between those models is what's creating friction, not just capitalism itself.